Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe, and do consider supporting the channel via PayPal or Patreon. You'll find the links in the video description. Round 12 of the candidates, and let's jump straight in and look at the game between the leader of the tournament, Jan Nepomniachtchi, and Hikaru Nakamura. So Nepo 1.5 points clear of Ding going into this game, and he continues his strategy of playing super solidly, very responsibly, happy to make draws and just cruise over the finishing line without any drama. And Nakamura goes for the Berlin variation, and Nepo very happy to go in for this repetition variation, which has been seen quite a lot in online tournaments over the last couple of years. The problem with this line for black is that any deviation from these moves gives white something to play for without any risk. So it's quite clear that Nakamura was also content with a draw. And the game ended in this traditional threefold repetition, a draw. Well, for Nepo, very understandable. He's just continuing his stately progress towards first place. For Nakamura, was it wise to just make a draw like this? Well, I think actually quite a sensible decision. He's still interested in second place. Now, he doesn't want to shoot himself in the foot, go completely crazy and possibly lose. I think clearly he has a lot of respect for Nepo's preparation, and very hard to, find a way to play for a win with black against someone so well prepared. So a draw with black is not a bad result, and he keeps himself into that in the fight for second place. Remember, second place in this tournament could be very interesting if Carlsen doesn't want to defend his world title. So let's move on to the game between Ding Liren and Radjabov. So Ding in second position. So could he win and he'd get a bit closer to Nepo and edge ahead in that battle for second place. So Ding with white against Radjabov. And it's a Nimzo Indian. Rubinstein variation with e3. So this is very classical, very traditional. Now the main line is knight f3. But Ding goes for c takes d5, which is a very trendy continuation at the moment. So the pawn structure is fixed. You push the bishop back and then you play queen c2. And white is interested in perhaps just playing like this. Maybe going f3, castles, perhaps pushing forward with e4. Sometimes you also play with the knight to e5 as well. That's possible. But you wait and see how black is setting up. And here Radjabov plays a really interesting move, and I think quite a good move. Knight a6 hasn't been seen that often, and at first glance it looks very odd, because where exactly is that knight going? These two squares are covered by pawns. But the point is this: you want to play c5 and then simply recapture with the knight. And then that will hassle the bishop. And for example, there was a game played fairly recently between Durabaili and Aparin, two strong grandmasters, where white played knight f3, c5 came. Now that threatens to push the bishop off this diagonal, or at least force it to f5 when it gets exchanged. And already black was absolutely fine in this position because the knight is hassling the bishop. So you can see that actually there is a disadvantage, or at least black is turning the queen on c2 into a disadvantage because after c4 it can't retreat back to c2. So it's a clever idea. Ding played knight e2, which is kind of similar problems. I mean, one question is, well, why not b4? If c5 is a strong idea, then simply why not b4 to clamp down on this one? Well, the problem is that black actually gets very quick play. Takes time for white to develop, and already black can get in a5 and disturb this pawn, and yeah, black already has very decent counterplay there. Okay, back we go. So knight a6 just played, knight e2 and c5, so that's the point. And yeah, I think it's not easy for white, or let's just say it's not easy for white to gain the advantage after this move. Already, you know, I think there are certain difficulties. So for example, if castles here, I mean, you can wait with, you know, rook e8, a very decent move, but you can push straight away. Exchange of bishops. Once those bishops are exchanged, I feel that black is already very comfortable. Play knight c7, and the knight not only protects this pawn, but you're ready to support the advance of the majority on the queen side. It's a very comfortable position for black. And there's another game from way back. We've transposed into a game between Paul Jona, a well-known Swiss player from the 1920s, 1930s, and Radjabov, played in Bern 1932, that went like this. And Radjabov already had a very comfortable position. Let me just show you a few moves. This is very nice, actually. The knight hopped back, and already you can see that black has a big positional advantage, you know, exploiting this weak square on c4, and that knight just kind of looms in to the position. So what did Ding do? Well, he took on a6. He obviously didn't like those variations, didn't want black's knight hopping into c5, didn't want the pawn advancing, so he just exchanged off. Is it a problem these pawns are doubled? Not really, because there is potential for black to use the b file, and the most important thing, this bishop, this light squared bishop, doesn't have an opponent, and that can have consequences. So Ding exchanged on c5, and now if castles, then just dropping the bishop back here is a nice move with some threats. But b4 played by Ding. Now he's striking out, and bishop b2. Fine, the bishop is on the long diagonal, but you know, there's a very easy counter to this, and actually it's very attractive for black to use that doubled a pawn to try to get rid of that double pawn and break this down. And already this is it's a tricky position. You know, black has started the middle game. Black is already castled. White's king is still in the middle. So, you know, do you get embroiled on the queen side somehow? But, you know, you've still got to take a time out to bring the king to safety. Or do you just castle? Now, I think a way for white to compromise would simply be to give up that b pawn, exchange off bishops, and just say, well, I've got a bit of compensation here. Isolated pawns, rook is ready to come over, the knight sits quite well on d4. Making something of this extra pawn for black would be extremely difficult. I suppose what's attractive for white is that there are no real attacking chances for black on the king side in this position. But the summit of white's ambitions here is a draw. It's quite clear. You know, if you took this pawn, well, and exchange pieces, it's going to be a draw. But Ding clearly was still wanted to get something from this position. He played b5. And now a6. And it's still not easy. You know, if white castles, queen c7 is a nice move, threatening the pawn. h3, a takes b5, and because of the pin, black has won a pawn. you know, it's tricky when, you know, there are these loose points, weak points in white's position. So Ding played h3, which takes away the g4 square, and, you know, gets this pawn out of the beam of the bishop. Bishop d7, nice move. Threatening a pawn. If a4, you can exchange, and then queen c8. This is a really nasty move for white. There's pressure on the c-file, but also black is preparing a sacrifice on h3 if white were to castle. Ding exchanged on a6. Still doesn't solve white's problems. In particular, I don't like that pawn on a3 and the bishop on b2. It's a really vulnerable piece. Also, you know, once a major piece hits the c-file as well, it's also not particularly comfortable. Rook d1 played. And instead of bothering to defend this pawn, rook b6, excellent move from Radjabov. Looking at that bishop on b2, and with the pawn on a3, it's very awkward. You know, that bishop doesn't have great mobility, that b3 square is weak. If that pawn on d5 is taken, queen b8 is a nice move. Look at those beautiful bishops. The queen looks at the bishop, or the rook and queen, I should say, threaten the bishop on b2. Rook c8. You know, white hasn't castled. Is there time to castle? Not really, because bishop b5 sets up this nasty pin. There's a nasty pin here. I mean, it would be a miracle if white actually managed to come out unscathed from this position. So rook b6 just played. Rook d2. Ding's trying to, you know, protect things, and who knows, maybe make room for the queen, but it's not easy. Queen c8. There's that move again. Queen c8. I really like this. Just reminding white that if the king castles, then a sacrifice could be very nasty. Let's have a look. Castles. This didn't happen, but this sack is a gift for black. Well, all these pieces are about to come into play, actually. Mate threatened, but there's knight g4. There's potentially the rook coming across as well. It's horrible. So after queen c8, Ding played f3. Oh, look at that pawn on e3. I mean, this... If that's the best that white has, well, things have reached a really critical situation already for Ding. Rook e8, simple move, hits e3. King f2, queen b8, good move. Sorry, queen b8 here. Looks at the bishop, looks down this diagonal, really nice. It's already very tough. If bishop c1, it's kind of the move. Well, do you want to make this move? Maybe you have to make that move just to withdraw the bishop. But then rook c8, this is so unpleasant. I can't see anything good about white's position. This is the thing. I can't see what white is playing for here. What is any advantage in white's position? Nah, it's just horrible. Queen p8 played. Queen c1, and now Radjabov crashed through. Rook takes e3. If that's taken, this didn't happen, but check. Here, queen e5 check. Takes. Knight h5. Very simple moves. White is lost. So rook e3 just played. Knight d1. Hitting the rook. Rook e8, the rook comes back. Black's now a clear pawn up, but with a completely winning position. Rook b3. Hits the knight. Knight g4. Let's just go through the final moves. Bishop takes. Rook c8. Back to torment the queen. Queen a1. And simple final move. Bishop f4. Nice move. If the rook moves up or down, then rook takes bishop. And if knight takes, queen takes f4. A attacks the rook, threatens knight g4 check. I mean, there is absolutely no defense for white in that position. So after bishop f4, Ding resigned. An utter crush. Really hard to explain. You know, I can't... Well, yeah, it's very odd. You know, Ding is such a strong player, but he collapsed very quickly here. He seemed to be completely thrown by that move knight a6, which I have to say looks like an excellent way to neutralize this system with queen c2. Well, what does that mean for the standings? Well, remember, Nepo is out ahead with 8.5. Then we've got two players in second position, Nakamura and Ding on 6.5. Radjabov, Caruana on 6. Caruana drew with Rapport. So the fight for second place is very much alive. Nepo just needs a draw and he's home and dry. Next round pairings, very interesting. We've got Nakamura white against Duda. Ding is black against Firuzja. All to play for. Now, Saturday is a rest day, and then the final two games will take place on Sunday and Monday. Just a quick reminder, my Kalashnikov course is on sale for the duration of the candidates, so you've still got a little bit of time to buy it, so do check that out. It's on sale at Chessable. You can find the link in the comments in the video description, and the book has just been published as well. Do check that out. Thanks for watching.